All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another lecture of Salesforce Makes Sense. This is Himanshu, and in this video, we'll be talking about SOSL. Now, what is SOSL? Salesforce Object Search Language, right? What we have previously learned as another explained series videos is SOQL, which was writing queries to query information from the database, which was Salesforce Object Query Language, also commonly known as SOQL. But today we'll be focusing on the search language queries, right? So anything and everything that you want to search in your database in Salesforce can be achieved via SOSL, right? That's the another object language that we get as part of Salesforce. Okay, so let's let's talk about what is SOSL. SOSL stands for Salesforce Object Search Language, right? And unlike SOQL or SQL or SOQL in Apex, they usually begin with the select clause, right? You write something like select ID, comma name from account. But SOSL, these queries begin with the find clause. So you have to write the keyword find to start a SOSL query. Okay, we'll look into this with live examples and practice questions. Don't worry about it. Just be with me in the theory part, right? The third thing, you use SOSL to write text-based search queries in your org, and they are based on the search index. So which means the platform uses indexing to give you the results, right? So SOSL uses indexing to find your result set and returns it to you faster and efficiently. Okay. Now there's a limitation with SOSL. There's a limitation with pretty much everything because we are on a multi-tenant platform. So the search engine looks for matches to the search term requested across a maximum of 2000 records. What does this mean? This fancy line means that SOSL will only look or search for in the set of 2000 records, right? So when you hit a SOSL query, when you hit a SOSL search, it will return a result based on the 2000 records match. Okay, so the first 2000 records are checked, and if it finds a match, it will return you the result. Okay, so in cases wherein you are, searching a bigger data set, be very particular about how you keep your filters, right? You have to be very careful and very granular in terms of setting your filters so that the right kind of data set is searched. Okay, so this is not a limitation with SOQL, which is SOQL, but with SOSL because it's a bit um, uh, co- it's a bit costlier because you're hitting the database with a search. It is has a limitation of maximum of 2000 records. Okay, so your search will look into the 2000 record set at a time, not more than that. Okay, great. Now, why do we need SOSL? There are limitations, right? But why do we need SOSL? Like, what do I do with just looking at 2000 records data set, or when would it be handy? So the idea behind using SOSL is, the one important thing is, in case you do not know which object are you wanting to look for, because when you write a SOQL query, right, when you write a SOQL query, you know that I want to query the account information, contact information, custom object XYZ information, or maybe opportunity, maybe lead, maybe task, maybe case, anything. The key idea is that you know the object in concern, so you can query on that particular object, right? If you want to get related information, you can query parent child, child parent, child child, whatever. You can query it if you know the names of your object. But what if you don't know which object to search for? How do you write a SOQL? You cannot, right? So that's when SOSL comes into the picture. So when you need to search for any key identifier, and that can be among multiple objects, they can be related or unrelated. So in this case, SOSL comes in handy, right? So you look into examples. For example, you want to look into a data wherein, let's say, find me all references where the keyword Salesforce is used, right? Or find me all references where the word John is used. So it can be on the account level. Yes, it can be on the contact level. Yes, it can be a user. Yes, it can be a lead. Yes, it can be a opportunity contact. Yes. So which means you have multiple objects to look into. You have multiple objects to search for. That's when you use SOSL and you don't use SOQL. Okay. So that's one key identifier as to when would you use a SOSL and not a SOQL. Okay. It could be an interview question. When do you use SOQL and when do you use SOSL? The primary difference being, if you don't know the objects, you have to go for search, and that is SOSL. All right. Now, with SOSL, you can only search these three kind of data type fields. What are they? I have short coded them to PET, P-E-T, right? It could be a dog, it could be a cat, but the short code is PET. All right, which is phone, email, text. What does this mean? This means that the SOSL will only be able to search into phone type fields, email type fields, and text type fields. Okay, no other kind of fields can be searched through SOSL. All right, and similar to the first one, when you do not know the object that has the result set, right? You might think that, okay, the word John can be in lead, opportunity, contact, or account, but I don't know which object does it contain. Which object will give me the result? In that case, you use SOSL. So the third point is very much similar to the first point. All right, so that's pretty much why we need SOSL. All right, let's jump into the query structure. Now, what is a query structure? The way we looked into SOQL, right? You start with saying select, then you put the names of the fields, then you say from, then you write the object name. So select name from account. Then you use the where clause, then you use other clauses which are optional. In SOSL, you don't start with the select clause, you start with the find clause. Okay, and then after you write the find clause, you give your search query. What is it that you want to search? Let's say John. So find John. Okay, so the find keyword is the required keyword to run a SOSL. Nothing else is required. None of this is required. You can run a SOSL query by just saying find John, and the SOSL will return your results. Okay, but if let's say you want to check in a specific group or a specific field type, what do you mean by specific field type? These field type, maybe phone, maybe name, email, or maybe you want to look at all fields. So you define that here. You define that here. You say find John in name fields. Okay, or you say find John in all fields, so it will look into all the type of fields that it can search through and it will try to give you the results. All right, that's the field type. And finally, one more keyword is returning. So what is it that you want to return from the SOSL? What is it that you want to see? So let's say you want to see what is the email, first name, last name of the contact that I want to search. So you'll say find John in name fields returning contact information, ID comma first name comma last name. So you'll get the result as the first name, last name, and ID of all the records that match the keyword John. Make sense? I know it's a bit high level. Now once we start doing the use cases, you'll get the hang of it, but just understand these three things: find, in, and then returning. These are the three things that you need. Which one of these is mandatory? The find keyword is mandatory. Nothing else is mandatory. Everything else is optional. Everything else is optional. All right, great. Let's look at some considerations before we jump into the use cases. So SOSL looks for maximum 2000 records and returns results. We already saw that. Okay. And the thing is with SOSL, because if you are an admin, you will see full results as you will have access to all the data. However, other users who have limited license types or who have sharing rules defined, they will only be able to see records that they have access to, which means it takes into consideration the sharing settings of the system of the org. Okay, so SOSL is good with that as well. All right, let's jump into use cases. Before jumping into the use cases, let's see, we talked about what is SOSL, the full form, Salesforce Object Search Language. It starts with the find clause. There's a limitation of 2000 records. You will use SOSL only when you don't know which object is the result set or what object to search for, or there are multiple objects to search for. You have a fixed type of searching available that is only for pet, phone, email, and text type fields. So you can only search these three kind of fields. Okay, and then the query structure was find, in, returning. Okay, so find, in, returning. How do you shortcode it as? You will shortcode it as FIR, right? So find, in, returning. Considerations: admins will be able to see more results compared to users who have limited licenses or limited sharing, and SOSL will look for a maximum of 2000 records and return the results that you need. Okay, awesome. Use cases: let's jump into our developer console. I'll be using the developer console to write the query. Yes, if you write the query here, you see, if you go to the developer console and you try to open the query editor, you can either write a SOQL or a SOSL query. Correct? So you see it has given you a prompt. Select columns from where. This is how you write a SOQL. And then using the find keyword, you can write a SOSL. So we'll be writing our first SOSL, and the first use case is here. Find all records with the keyword Salesforce. Okay, so this is a use case where you need to search across your system all the records that contain the keyword Salesforce. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start by writing find. That's the first keyword, and I'll say Salesforce. So this is in curly braces. This basically means the string that I want to search into the system. This is how you would write it. Okay, find Salesforce. Now let's try to hit it and say execute. So you see, I'm getting a lead record, two user records, two Apex pages, six classes. All objects that contain the potential keyword Salesforce have been returned. And that was our ask, right? So I was able to successfully find all references in objects where the keyword Salesforce is present. All right. Is this case sensitive? Let's quickly check. If I say Salesforce with all capital, it will still give me the same results. Lead, user, Apex page, class, email message, and everything. So this is case insensitive. All right. That was our first use case, the very simple use case, finding all keywords, finding all records with the keyword Salesforce. So far, so good. Awesome. Now let's look at use case number two, right? Search all records with the name Salesforce makes sense. Now you want to do a search on all the name or maybe the text kind of fields where the keyword that's contained is Salesforce makes sense. Okay, so let's go to the developer console, and just like we did before, we'll just say find. And what do I want to find now? I'll say Salesforce makes sense. Okay, now focus on this particular keyword. It says search all records with the name, right? So you don't want any other field. It could be an email field or it could be a phone field, right? You only want the text fields that have this particular value. So you have to use the in clause. So if you say in, you can mention something like name fields. All right. And when you do that and you say execute, it does not return any results. However, there is a lead record in the system which is available without the spaces. Okay, so let's give it a try without the spaces. Now if I say execute, it takes time to cache, so I'll just refresh the page again, and let's do the search one more time. So now if I say find Salesforce makes sense in name fields, I'll say execute. This returns me a lead record, and if I open this lead record, you'll notice one of the text fields in this particular lead record has the same string, right? So let's go to details. Let's see. So you see the company is Salesforce makes sense. All right. If I were to add something in between here and try to do a search after it, it would fail. Okay. So it would do a search. All right. That was use case number two, wherein along with the find word, we also use the in clause. Okay, so find Salesforce makes sense, which is the keyword. In what kind of fields? You can say name, you can say all, you can say phone, you can say email. Okay, so you can do all of this. All right, so if you see, find Salesforce makes sense in email fields returns me a lead, a contact, a user, and a survey response. So this is how it makes a difference. So you need to choose your filters and your clauses very properly based on what your requirement is. Okay, here the question was search all records with the name. So I only did a search on all the name fields. Okay, so that was use case number two. Let's look at use case number three. Find all account records. A new term has come in. You want to find a specific object's records whose email is this particular value. So you see, instead of name, now you want to search only the email. I hope you get the hang of it. Okay, so read it again. Find all account records. So what do I want to search? I want to search all the records which are of type object account, where the email address is this particular value. Okay, yes, this can be done by SOQL, but this is just a use case that I want to show you how to use the clauses in SOSL. Okay, let's start with the basic. This is the keyword that you want to search. So let's go to dev console. Let's come here. I'll say find. I'll put my keyword search. Now, what do I want to search in which kind of fields? That's correct. Email kind of fields, right? So I'll say in clause in email fields. All right. So if I give this a hit and I say execute, you will notice that I am getting a lead, a contact, a user, and a survey response. Okay. However, my ask is to find only the account records. Now, if because there's no record returned here, let me just say that find all contact records, let's say. Okay. So I don't want the set of all the four objects. I just want the contact data to be returned. How do I say that? I say returning. I used the clause returning, which was our third keyword, right? So there was find, then you had in, and then you had returning. So in returning, I can simply mention which object am I looking at. So it can be lead, it can be contact, it can be user, it can be survey response, it can be anything. All right. Can it be multiple? Yes, it can be multiple. So it can be lead, comma, contact, even that can be there. So if I just go ahead and say execute, so you see it is only returning the lead and contact. But what is my requirement? My requirement is I just want to see only contact related records where the email address is Salesforce makes sense @gmail.com. So if I click on this record and I say open detail page, this should open the record and one of the email fields should be Salesforce makes sense @gmail.com. Let's go to details. You see, here's the email. Perfect. Awesome. Let's take a look at the next use case. The fourth use case says find all contacts. Now you want to look at contact records, right? Where the name is Himanshu and it should show you name and phone information. Meaning, as of now, if you noticed, we did not really see anything apart from the ID, right? But what if you want to see the ID, the first name, the last name, and things like that? How do you do it? That is what we'll achieve as part of this use case. So let's try to build this particular use case. What do I want to do? I want to find where the name is Himanshu. Let's copy this name. Let's go in here and let's remove the email address, or let's start from scratch. Find Himanshu in. Now what should be in? Where the name is Himanshu, right? So it should be name fields, correct. And what do you want to return? You want to return all the contacts. So as of now, we know this. So if I say returning contact, okay, so this should work. If I say execute, so it is returning one contact record, correct? But I'm only seeing the ID field. How do I see the name and the phone information? How do I do that? I come here and I put a bracket and I mention the names or the API names of the fields that I want to see. And I say execute. So you see, now I'm able to see better data set. I'm able to see exactly, see the first name is Imanshu, which is why this record has been returned. Last name is M, and there's no phone information available. That's why it's empty. But what did I do? I said find, I gave the keyword, I told which fields to look at by using the in clause, and then I said returning, what object do I want to return and what fields do I want to see. This is the syntax. And if you know just this bit, you should be able to write pretty much 80, 85, 90% of all the SOSL queries that you will potentially get in your requirements. Okay, awesome. We are learning very fast. We are learning very good, right? Let's take a look at the next use case, which is use case number 5. Now things are, so what I've done is I've started from the very super easy ones, beginner, intermediate, and probably advanced, right? So we'll look at about 8 or 9 use cases. So right now we are on the 5th one. Okay, and if you are able to do this on your own live as I do it, try to write it on your own so you'll get the hang of it very quickly. It's not a big deal. It's not a not tough as well. You should be able to write it very easily. Okay, now use case number 5, find all leads with name, which is either Jamie or Jose, and only show records which have been created in the current month. So things have just gotten a bit interesting. Now what do I want to do? I want to search the name fields. That's correct. I want to see one of these. Now it's not just one search. I want to do a search of two different fields, two different keywords, not fields. And which kind of records do I want to show? I want to show the lead records. Okay, let's try to write it. Let's get rid of this and I'll say find. So you see, I'm saying find Jamie. Is that the name? Yes, Jamie, comma Jose in name fields. Why name fields? Because I want to search all the leads with name, where the name is either this or that. All right. Now, which kind of records do I want to return? I want to return the lead records. Okay. So I'll say returning lead. So it's currently empty. There are no records available. So let's go ahead and try to create a lead record. Or let's modify a lead record. Or let's look at some leads. What are the names available? So leads, let's look at all leads, all open leads. Okay, so let's look at maybe David and Betty. Okay, so let's go back to our dev console and now we'll say find me either David or Betty. Okay, let's give it a refresh and then try. Sometimes the queries don't get executed, the SOSL ones, because they are cached in the dev console. So I'll just go ahead and say find David and Betty, and now let's try to execute it. I'm still getting 0 records. So let's do something. Let's say find David. Does it return me a record? Yes, it's finding the David record. What about Betty? Yes, it is finding 2 Betty records. Now what I want to do is I want to do David or Betty. So what I did was I put a comma to see that, okay, does it work? It does not. So let me say or. So I'll say either David or Betty. What happens? I get the 3 records. Okay. So what I'm saying is I'm telling the system find me David or Betty. This is how you use a or operator in your search keywords. Okay. If you want to search this or that in all the name fields returning lead. So you're able to see that there are 3 lead records. Let me just quickly get some information of the lead. Let's say execute. So you see Betty, Betty and David, all the 3 records are here. Okay. Now there's one more part available. It says find all leads with name which is either Jamie or Joe or Jose, which is Betty or David is what we did now because that's the record that we have in the system, and only show records which have been created in the current month. So to see the records, I want to see what is the created date, right? Let's see what is the created date first of all. So the records are created back in 2017 and 2018. Okay, what about the last modified date? Let's look at last modified date. So they have been last modified back in 2023 and 2018. So what I'll do is I'll just open Betty's record and I'll just modify it. Okay, and then we'll use that as our filter. So I'll go to details. I'll just move the status to mark as current status. Okay, now if I take a look at the records and I say execute, this will not get executed because it is now cached. Let's refresh. Let's close our Apex classes and now let's re-execute it. Okay, I should see one record which has the last modified date as today's date. This one, which is Betty Nugent, right? This is what I modified. Now let's modify our use case and say only show records which have been modified in the current month. Okay, or instead of current month, let's see if you're able to target it or tap it. Okay, how do I do that? I have just written find in returning. Right now here I can say where last modified date equals today. All right, and sorry, this will not be here, this should go inside. Why inside? Because this is where I have listed the fields and this is where I can put my where clause. So when I say execute and I say where, this is the record that's showing up. Make sense? What did I do? I used the standard SOSL find in and returning, and for the object wherein I listed my fields I gave a where clause by adding a filter. Okay, what if I wanted to say current month? I can simply say this month, correct? If I say execute, this will give me this result again because now the last modified date is in this month. That was our use case. Okay, so what does that tell you? That tells you that you can put where clause, you can put limit, you can put offset, all of those clauses also in SOSL, just how you used to do it in SOQL. It's available and applicable here as well. Okay, why won't it work outside? Because outside is not where the context lies. This cannot be outside because it does not know which object to look at. Why? Because you can put multiple objects here. You can put a lead or a contact, right? What objects last modified data are you looking at? That's why you have to put it inside the brackets where you have listed all the fields. So it will be able to identify the last modified field is the last modified field of the lead object. Okay, why is it inside C? Because I can also get contact records. If I just say go ahead and execute, I should be able to get contact records also. Okay, let's say or Himanshu and say execute. So you see now I'm getting two lead records and one contact record. Okay, let's get the contact details also. I'll say ID, comma first name, comma created date, last modified date, birth date. I'm getting pretty much all the dates, right? And if I say execute now, so you'll see that the contact is last modified in 2021 and the lead, there are two records which have been modified today. One is Betty, one is Himanshu, right? So you see how the SOSL is returning me everything. It found me the David or Betty or Himanshu record. So it found me Himanshu, it found me Betty. It did not find David. Why? Because I had a criteria on the lead object that the last modified date should be this month. But why did it return me the contact Himanshu whose last modified date is in 2021? Because that filter is only for the lead records. If I want a filter on the contact, I have to give that filter here. So that's the flexibility you get by having multiple objects returned, and you can be very selective about what kind of filters you want to put. Okay, so I can say where last modified date equals today, right? So this should again return me the record. So it is returning me two lead records now. Why? Now lead is still fine because there is a Betty record and a Himanshu record that have been modified today or in this month. But the record that came from the contact was not modified today. So this filter has eliminated that record and now you are only getting two leads, even though you have queried that give me both leads and contacts. Make sense? Take some time, go back to the start of this use case, look at this particular use case one more time, and I'm sure that it will be completely clear. Okay, it's not tough. Again, it's not tough. It's just about understanding what we are doing here. Okay, if it is a bit fast for you, I'll say take a look at this, just this one use case or probably the last two use cases we have done one more time. Or when I am doing it, try to do it yourself. Try to write the same line. This is just two lines of query that you need to write on your dev console. Go ahead, open your dev console, try to write it yourself. You will for sure get a hang of it. Okay, I said that you can use more of those clauses, right? So if I say where last modified is this month, limit 1. What happens if I put limit 1? See, I just get one record. Even though there are two records that matched the search criteria, because I had a limit put, it is only returning me one record. So let's say you want one record from lead and one record from contact, you could put a limit here. So this will ensure that if the results return a set that matches what you need, after the filters are applied, it will return you one lead record and one contact record. All right, fancy? Great. Let's take a look at the next use case. So the next use case says find all web sourced contacts and active user contacts where name is Himanshu. Now you see the reason I have highlighted certain things is because I want to use them as filters. But when you have an actual business requirement, things won't be highlighted. You should be smart enough to understand the same thing like this. Right? So find all web sourced contact. What does that mean? That means that you need to find all the contact records and active user records. What does that mean? That you need to find two object records, contact and user. Now, what is the search criteria? The name should be Himanshu. So which kind of fields will you search? You will search the name fields. Do you want to start writing it? Let's go ahead. What I want to encourage you to do right now is just take a look at this use case, pause the video, try writing it yourself. Okay, reach a particular point, use your name here, or maybe a contact record that exists or a user record that exists. You don't have to use my name because you will not get the records, correct? It will always be zero. So use your name. Okay, now let's start writing it. So where name is Himanshu, so I'll just say find. What is the keyword? Himanshu. In what kind of fields? Name kind of fields. So I'll just say name. Let's say execute. What does it return? It returns me a lead, contact, account, user. Now, what am I interested in? I'm interested in contact and user, correct? So I'll just say returning contact, comma, user. Execute. So I got contact and user. So far we are going good, right? Let's try to find some fields so that we get some information about the record that has come, right? ID, username, email, is active. This is for the user object. These are all API names. You must be thinking, how do I know the API names? Because I know the API names. It's been some time I've been working with these objects. So if you don't know the API names, you can simply go to the object manager, go to the relevant fields and just copy paste the API name. Okay, just execute. So contact Himanshu M is the record, and on user, this is the username, this is the email address, this is the is active flag, and this is the ID. Exactly what I requested here. Right now, there's one catch. I want to look at only those records which are active users and they are web sourced. So for active user, you must already know like what we have to do. We have to simply go here in the user level and we have to say is active equal to true. That's it. So that solves our second filter. So you see the user is still being shown. Why? Because the flag is true here. Correct? Now, what is the other use case? What is the other filter? The contact should be web source. So if I look at the contact, let's open this contact. There must be a field that contains the source information, and that should be of type web, I believe. That's what I am thinking. So if I go to details, so let's look at lead source. See, the lead source field should be of type web. That is what the use case is asking. So the contact that is returned should have the lead source of type web. So I'll say, let's query the lead source. What is the lead source for the contact? It is currently empty. Okay, what I'll do here is I'll say where lead source equals web. You see, I'm putting a where clause. Now if I execute, I don't get the contact record. Why? Because the contact that matched before with the name Himanshu does not have any lead source. Okay, that's the reason why you don't see the contact anymore and you are only getting the user. All right, now if I were to just go ahead and change the lead source here, I'll say web, I'll say save, I'll go back to my dev. Oh, okay, a lot of fields are mandatory, so I'll just put dummy values here. These are some validation rules that are running because I had a validation rule video also, right? So on behalf of that, it is running. Okay, so now the lead source is web. Let's go back to the dev console, and I think this will take time to execute, but let's see. If I say execute now, it is not working. Let's copy and refresh. Okay, let's try to hit the same query again, and this time I should get what? A contact record and a lead record. Sorry, and a user record. So let's say execute. So you see I'm getting the contact record. Why? Because the lead source is web. That's the where clause filter. Okay, so we have been able to find all the web sourced contacts and all the active users in the system whose name is Himanshu. Perfect. Awesome. That was use case number 6. So we have done from the very beginning. We started with just the find keyword, then we used the in clause, then we used the returning clause, then we used records to return multiple objects. Then we looked at how to get the field data, not just IDs. I want to see more fields. Then we used the where clause to filter our data more. We used exquisite exclusive where clauses, like one where clause for the first object, second one for the other object, that gave us a different data set. And then we also use the limit clause to return a subset of data. Okay, a good amount of things done in just 6 use cases, right? Perfect. Now let's look at use case 7. So find all contacts who have first name as Himanshu but last name can be Maheshwari or make sense. Okay, so everything revolves around my name in these use cases, but I'll encourage you to just put your name here and try to make sense of the use cases. Okay, because if you try with the same use case, you might not have records in the system. You will always get 0 records and you will think, okay, my use case is working, but it might not be true. Okay, so just put your name here, create a contact or create some records with your name or some name that you are familiar with and try to run these use cases. Okay, so I'll encourage you again to pause the video here, try to write this SOSL again, and let's see how it goes. For those of you who are waiting for me, let's get started. So find all contacts who have first name as Himanshu, okay, but last name can be Maheshwari or make sense. All right, so I'll find all contacts in what fields? It is again name fields, right? First name or last name, it is all name fields. So I'll say find in name fields, returning contact. I want to see the first name and I want to see the last name. Okay, let's say execute. You say it says search term must be longer than one character. Why? Because I left it empty. I have to put something in here. Okay. Now why did I leave it empty? Now take a look at the use case. Find all contacts. Okay, I'm finding all contacts who have the name. Okay, I have put in name fields. But now the question is that the first name should be Himanshu, but last name can be Maheshwari or make sense. So I have a hard and fast rule that the first name should be Himanshu. Okay, but the last name can be either Maheshwari or make sense. It cannot be anything apart from that. So what should be my keyword? My keyword should be the thing that is static, right? The first name should be Himanshu, right? So if I just go ahead and say find Himanshu in name fields, returning contact, if I say execute, it returns me one record. Okay, but let me show you a bigger picture. Now this is the same contact I believe that is returned, Himanshu M, right? Let's go ahead and put, do I have a text field here? Let's look at text field department, right? So I'll just put Himanshu as the department name. Okay, I'll put assistant as Himanshu and I'll say save. Okay, now let's get rid of the name Himanshu from here. This is just HIM and this is MAHE, let's say, and let's say save. Okay, and now let's rerun this query. What do you think? Should it return the result? Should it still return the result? Let's see. If I say execute, it is still returning me the result. Now, is it a valid result? What do you think? Let's look at our use case. It says find all contacts who have the first name as Himanshu. Okay, but last name can be Maheshwari or make sense. Now, this is returning a contact record where the text field contains Himanshu as the keyword. Why? Because the text field assistant or department have this keyword. But what we want to do is we want to find only those records where the first name is Himanshu. So alongside that, we also need a where clause where I'll say where first name equals Himanshu. And if I do that, it does not return me any result. That's what we need to do. All right. So we are searching for the keyword that's Himanshu in all the name fields, and then we are filtering out only those which have the first name as Himanshu. Make sense? Right? So the first name should be Himanshu, but the last name can be Maheshwari or make sense. Now this can also be another where clause filter. So where the first name should be Himanshu and last name can be in one of these two. What two? Maheshwari or make sense. If I just go ahead and say execute, it still does not return any results. Why? Because in this particular record, neither the first name is Himanshu nor the last name is Maheshwari or makes sense. So if I just go ahead and modify it, I'll say Maheshwari, put the name back, I'll say save. Okay, now it has Himanshu Maheshwari as the first name and last name. So now should it return the result? Let me just modify it so that I am able to re-execute it. Okay, if I just say and here and I say execute, so it is still not showing me results. Why? So if I say find Himanshu in name fields returning contact where first name equal to Himanshu and last name in one of these two. So let me just refresh. Maybe sometimes it does not work. I'll just refresh and test it and then we'll debug why is it not working. Query editor. So I'm trying to find the keyword Himanshu in all the name fields returning the contact information where the first name should be Himanshu. Let's look at the record. The first name should be Himanshu, which is correct, and the last name can be one of these two, either Maheshwari or make sense. Okay, let's say execute. So it's returning me the result, right? So it's returning me the right result. Now, if I just try to change this to make sense and I say save, should it still return me the result? Yes, it should, because the use case was it should either be Maheshwari or make sense, and that's what we put in the in clause, right? And if I say execute again, it will still return me the same result. Okay, See, this has not been refreshed. So sometimes if the results are not coming up, you can just refresh your entire dev console and rerun your query. Okay, let's rerun our query. So you see now Himanshu makes sense is showing up. All right, so you understood what we did here, how we tackled the situation. We said, find me all the records from the contact in the name fields where the keyword is Himanshu. So it found all the records. But those records also had some records where maybe the other fields like assistant, department have the keyword, had the keyword, right? But I only wanted those where the first name was Himanshu, not all any random field. So I put a where clause filter in my contact field list. Okay, and then we had one more criteria that the last name should be one of the two values. So I used the or keyword or maybe the in keyword. So I said last name in these two values, similar to how you use it in SOQL. Okay, so that's how you use the how I use the in keyword. There's another way of writing it, right? So you can say and. If you are not familiar with the in keyword, how can you write it? You can say last name equals Maheshwari or last name equals makes sense. So you can even do that. But in is always better, right? So that's a better way to write it. So you can write it this way also. Both have the same meaning, both execute in the same way. All right. So the short code of writing it is by using the in clause. So it helps you remove some extra lines of code. See, last name I don't have to repeat. I can get rid of all of this and I can put a comma and I can just give a set of words that I want to search in. So that's the in clause. I think I got an error. What is that? Last name. Yeah, I can get rid of the extra bracket and I can now say execute. All right. So that was use case number 7. The use cases are getting better, they're getting bigger, and if they are getting difficult to understand or you're not able to keep the pace along with me, I recommend you to just look at the use case one more time. That's it. Just look at the use case one more time from the beginning, and I'm sure you'll feel double the confident that you're feeling right now, in case you're not feeling confident. Okay, and the best thing to do is always, like I say in all my videos, try to do it with me. If you're able to do it, then there are no issues. All right, so that was use case number 7. Let's move on to the next use case. Use case number 8. So find the first 3 account and contact records with keyword SMS. Okay, now this is a very big question. It has 3 parts. There's a full stop, there's a period sign here, here, and then there should be one here. Okay, so there are 3 parts. Let's do it step by step. For those of you who are ready to do it on your own, just go ahead and give it a hit and let me know if you're able to do it or not. Okay, and for those of you who need some assistance, let's continue with this video. Find the first 3 account and contact records, okay, with the keyword SMS. So we know what the keyword is. Let's go ahead and hit it. Let's start fresh. Find, what is the keyword? SMS. Perfect. Execute. There are no records. Let me just try to create one record. Let's say the company here is SMS. Let's say save. Okay, now the result should return one record. I'll not hit it for now. So what records does it want to find? It wants to find the account and the contact records. So keyword SMS, is it mentioning that what kind of fields? No, right? It is not saying that look into the name field or look into the email field. So I'll say look into all the fields and I'll say execute. So now it is giving me one result, which is the lead record that we just modified. See, SMS. That's the record that's showing up. Perfect. What's the next thing? It wants to see the account and the contact records. So I want to return account, comma, contact. Okay, it wants to see only the first 3. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and say give me all the account ID limit 3 and give me all the contact ID limit 3. Let's say execute. It is not returning any records. Why? Because there is no account or contact with the SMS company in it, right? Or SMS name in it. So let's go ahead into an account. Let's put the account site, or let's put the account site as SMS here. Let's say save. Let's go to a particular contact. So I'm just doing a data set. I'm creating a data set so that you are able to get the records. Okay. If I come here, let's say the title or something. Yeah, let's put the title as SMS. Save. Okay. Now let's go back here and now let's say limit 3. Limit 3 is fine. So let's re-execute this particular query. It will not run immediately. I might have to refresh. So instead of refreshing, let's change the query so that it executes, right? So if you see now, it is returning the contact and the account that we were looking at, correct? Let's get some more information. ID, comma, name, and on contact, I can get the first name, title, last name, and say execute. Okay, and I want the limit, right? Why? Because that's the use case that I want to see only the first 3 records. Limit 3. All right, so we are getting some information because there is SMS in one of the fields that's available. So you see the title available here is SMS, and on the account, the site is SMS. Now, what else is the use case saying? So we have been able to do the first part. Okay, now what's the next part? Only filter those accounts which have revenue greater than 20K. So there is a revenue field on the account level. Let's look at it. If I go to accounts, so if I go to the trailhead account that we had, is there a revenue field? You see, there's this revenue field. Okay, so the question is, you should be able to return this account only if this value is greater than 20K. All right, only then it should return. So what do I need to do? Yes, that's correct. I need to write a filter. So I'll go back to my dev console, and on the account level, I put the filter where annual revenue greater than 20,000, and I'll say execute. So you see, I'm still getting the results. Why? Because the annual revenue for this particular account is more than 20,000. Let's go ahead and say execute. So you see, the annual revenue is 55,000. If I were to write something like less than 20,000, I will not get the account record return, only the contact record will show. See, right? So the where clause is working fine. So I'll just say greater than 20,000 and say execute. Let's go back to the use case. That's the first requirement. The second part is and contacts that have an email ID. So if I were to take a look at the contact record, let's query and just see what is the email ID. If I say email and I say execute, what is the contact email? It is him.mahe@gmail.com. Okay, so if I have to check whether an email address exists or not, I can put a null check, correct? So I'll say where email not equal to null. Why not equal to null? So that I can get only the contacts that have an email ID. Okay, and I'll say execute. Perfect. Now, if I were to go back to my contact, right, and if I were to remove this particular email address, let's say details, and let's remove this email address. Now, if I try to re-execute my SOSL, email should always end with .com. Okay. I'll not be able to remove it because of the validation rule. So that's okay. But if I were to remove it, and if I try to execute my SOSL, it will not return me the contact then. It will only return me the account. Okay. So you can give it a try. All right. So we are building our SOSL slowly and gradually, and it's becoming huge, right? So what did we do first? We said, find me the keyword SMS. Right? Because there was no specific kind of field mentioned, we said give me all fields. If a field was mentioned, like let's say text field, so I would say name. If email field, then I would say email. If phone, then phone fields. Okay, but none of it was mentioned, so I said in all fields. Okay, which means it will take a look at the PET, phone, email, and text, all kinds of fields. Now, what did it want me to return? Only the account and contact records. So we gave account and contact. All right, and then it wanted two filters. On the account level, it wanted only records which have the annual revenue more than 20K. So I put a where clause here, and then only the contacts which have an email ID. So I put a where clause here. Okay, and then they only wanted to see the first 3 records. So I put a limit 3. So far, so good. Perfect. Let's look at the last line. So it says that the records should be sorted based on name. So what do we use for sorting in SOQL? Yes, we use the order by clause. So I'll just say order by name, and here also I'll say order by name. And this is now sorted by name. All right, there's only one record. Let me do something. Let me get one more record so that you can see the sorting in picture. Let's go to contacts, and we just need SMS, right? So if I go to Brian Dent, if I say details and I look at reports to, okay, that's a contact field. Let me put the title. Let's put it here. Okay, and let's say save. Okay, now let's go back, and now let's say limit 5. I'm just trying to re-execute the query. Okay, still only one record is showing up. Why? Maybe there's no email address. No, there's an email address here. What's the issue? Okay, I think it's not able to find this particular. Let's try one hit with a refresh, or else we'll fix it on the data level. Okay, let's say query editor, and let's execute. So you see now I'm getting two contacts. Okay, so you see both the records are showing up, and now how is it sorted? It is sorted by name. So B comes first, H comes later. What if you wanted to sort it in descending format? So you can do name desk and you can say execute. So now you see that the contacts are sorted descending and the account is sorted ascending, because we have put the desk keyword only on the contact level. On the account level, it is still the ascending format. All right, perfect. We learned a good chunk of a deal in this one use case only, right? Again, if you are not feeling confident, if you felt this went a little fast, look at the use case one more time. Okay, just go back to the where the use case started and just look at it one more time and try to do it along with me. Try to make mistakes along with me. Try to write it on your own. Try to not wait for me to write it. Try to figure out how would you write it. That would boost your confidence immediately, and that would help you, learn it very faster. All right, awesome. Let's look at the next use case, which is use case number 9. What does it say? It says find all account records from accounts created today list view which have the keyword Acme. Now this is interesting. As of now, what we have done is we have done this part, we have done this part. But now this question says that you want to find records from a specific list view. Awesome. Can this be done? Let's take a look. So let's say find all accounts, right? So what do I need to do? I can start from the scratch. I'll say find in all fields returning account. Okay, ID comma name. If I do a star and I say execute, what happens? It says must be longer than one character. Okay, so let's put double star. What happens? Nothing happens, right? This is not accepted. So I'll simply say, so I have the keyword here, right? Acme. So I'll just say find Acme in all fields returning accounts. If I say execute, there are no records. Let's put trailhead because I know there is one account with trailhead. So this is the account that's showing up. Okay, so let's say trailhead is the keyword. Perfect. So this bit is done and this bit is done. Now, it says that you want to find it only from this particular list view. So if I take a look at our org, if I go to accounts, these are the list views, correct? So here you will see all accounts, my accounts, new last week, new this week, right? So accounts created today list view. Let's look at maybe, is there a list view called accounts created today? No, right? So let's look at new this week list view, or let's look at my accounts. Yeah. So I'm just looking at a list view that has some fields, that has some records. Okay. And this is one that has the records. So my accounts, let's rename this to my accounts list view. Let's just change the name of the list view. Okay. How do I do it? My accounts is a list view on what object? On the account object. So what I have to do is similar to how we write the where clause here, how we write the limit here, how we write order by, how we write our conditionals. I can simply say using list view equals my accounts. Now, in order to find the right name, I will go to this setting and I'll go to rename. And I know this is the API name. See, this is the API name. This is what I need to copy. My accounts and pretty much what I have written is the same thing. And I'll say execute. So you see, it is returning me this record. If I were to look at, let's say, sold test. Okay, let's look at sold test. So if I type sold test, so I'm getting the sold test record. Okay, if I were to write sold, I am getting this record. What if I write test? So you see, I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 records here. Let's look into the list view. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are all the test keyword containing records. Okay, let's do something. Let's put a filter. Let's put a filter here saying add a filter, account name does not contain the keyword test. Save. So you see now this list view does not contain any records. Now if I go back here and I try to execute it one more time, I'll just make a mistake here so that or let's put limit so that we're able to see the execution again. So you see now no records are being shown. Why? Because the list view does not contain the records which have the keyword test in it. Correct? Let me execute it one more time. Why is it showing here? Let's refresh it. It does not work without a refresh because of the cache. Okay, so don't worry if it's not giving you the responses. Refresh and then try one more time. So I'll just say execute. So now you're not getting any results. Right? Now if I were to say instead of test, find me all accounts with HIM. So you see I'm getting HIM, HIM and Himanshu. Right? So if I look at the records, you see 1, 2 and 3. All right. So this is how you can even search records on a specific list view. How cool is that? Right? So we learned a very good deal. We learned a lot of things. If you want to take a look at more of this stuff, you can simply, say SOSL developer reference, right? This is your developer guide to writing SOSL queries. So this is your entire Salesforce documentation, and here you have everything that you need, right? So you see, we talked about in, limit, there's offset, you have returning, you can do the using. So you want to see the syntax, you can go to this particular this particular documentation, and everything and anything that is possible, right, is available. And you can probably take a look, deep dive probably into this particular document. Okay, this is Salesforce document. All right, so we did a good chunk of use cases, pretty much 8 or 9 of them. I see the using list view also. See, the using list view is available here. Some additional notes similar to SOQL, but you should know, right? So what we did is we use the where clause, we use the order by clause, we use the limit clause, right? Even offset can be used. So pretty much all the criteria based functions or criteria based clauses that you used to use in SOQL can also be used in SOSL as is. Okay, there's no restriction to it. Talking about the governor limits, see, pretty much everything has limits, right? So the number of SOSL queries per transaction is 20. So you can write 20 SOSL queries. Okay, and number of SOSL records that are returned per query, what's the maximum? That's 2000. If I were to replace this with SOQL, let's see if you can tell me what is the thing here. How many SOQL queries can you write? And how many SOQL records are returned? The SOQL records returned per query are how many? 50,000. Correct? If you go beyond, it gives you a SOQL exception. And how many SOQL queries can you write? 100. Right? So if you go beyond 100, it gives you an error. Okay, but for SOSL, this is 20 and this is 2000 because searching is a bit costlier, right? That's why the limitations are a bit more steep. Okay, so that's your governor limits. Now it's time for the quiz and let's see what you learned. Okay, I have some questions for you. Are you ready? Question number one, which parameter is mandatory while writing a SOSL? Is it the returning parameter, find, find and returning, find in and returning? What is your answer? So the correct answer is B. Only find keyword is mandatory. Correct? You don't need anything else. Only the find keyword is mandatory. Next question. Which three data types are supported by social search? If you remember the acronym that I taught, you should be able to answer it quickly. Is it phone, email, text, text, phone, currency, phone, text area, number, email, roll up summary, or currency? So the correct answer is A, which is PET, phone, email, and text. All right. Awesome. Let's look at the next question. What is the maximum number of records you can search via social query? Is it 5,000, 1,000, 2,000, or 100? How many records can you search via social query? The result is 2,000. That's option B. Correct. All right, I think that's all I had from this particular tutorial. I hope I was able to explain you social in this explain series. What I might have for you is some more practice assignments. I'd want you to either comment or probably write an email to me to get more practice questions if you want to practice them apart from what I showed. So yeah, just put a comment below or write back to me on my email address and I should be able to help you with some more practice questions and assignments. All right, that's all from me. Thank you and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.